You just sit down and you actually write down, right, how much do I have coming in? How much have I got going out? What sort of debt am I carrying? When you're stuck in this cycle of not having enough money, you get stuck in debt really easily, and it really compounds against you, and it starts to feel a bit like you're drowning. And your plan forward really needs to focus on paying down high interest debt if you've got it, so anything above 7%.
Jen and Lili, welcome to this episode of KEAL, talking about personal finance, especially focusing on women, moms, how we can adhere and talk to their particular situations of what they may be facing now, and how you can give very important, valuable insight. And I think this is going to be a really scintillating conversation. How are you both doing today?
Wonderful.
Very good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you both so much. And for our listening and our viewing audience, as you all know, I'm in Mexico City. Can you please tell them where you both are this day?
Today we're in Wellington, where I live, and Lili lives in Levin, which is slightly north of Wellington.
And we're in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. And they're on a different day, by the way. And I'm I'm pretty sure I'm still on Friday. And they're on Saturday. I don't even know what time it is anymore.
We're on Saturday. We're afternoon Saturday.
There you go. Oh, well, we both have good weather. That's the only thing I really know. So, well, I thank you both so much for being on this episode, DevKeel. And I really want to talk about both of your, journey and the limited time we have, but like your journey, especially together, in the way in which you help, so many people, a lot of women out there, moms, especially considering important aspects of their personal finances, because, we're recording this episode now a couple of years after the pandemic started in 2020. And, there's a lot of issues that a lot of people are facing with all around the world. A lot of moms, a lot of women have been dramatically impacted economically with everything that, pandemic unfortunately brought. Having to raise kids and being, maybe in a very precarious situation because of losing their job, or having to take on more work because now we're facing inflationary issues. So it's just kind of a mess for a lot of people, and they're really, really hurting out there. So to begin, can we talk about both of you just really briefly about each other's journey, your friendship, and why in the world are you both helping other people with their finances?
Yeah, so we've been friends for, I think 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we go.
And they're only 26.
Something like that.
Yeah. We have, I have 3 children. Lili has 4. And we have, maybe Lili starts off with a little bit about, because Lili has been thinking about finances but before I did, and she would talk to me about it, and I'll be like, oh, this sounds really important, and I need to start thinking about it. So it was her who planted the seed for me when we were quite young. Yeah,
and I think great friends pressure you to invest. Look, Jen and I, we've always had pretty in-depth conversations about, especially in the early days, around property and ways that we could invest. We were both very focused on property when we were younger, but more recently, I read a book called Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. I was very inspired. I went through all the steps in the book, and Jen happened to move from Auckland down to Wellington, and she was closer to me, and we met up one day, and I was like, oh, look, Jen, look at all this, this is our net worth. This is how much we've earned in our lifetime. I really want to start investing. And I was showing it all to Jen, and she was probably like, okay, Lili.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah. So,
and we also never, we were very open and honest with each other. And I think that was quite unique outside of our partnerships with our husbands. We would talk very openly about our money, which
I think right from that point, it was sort of like, okay, the topic of finances is on the table. Let's get each other's insights about what would we do, because we both think pretty differently. And just having that support to bounce ideas off of each other, to have that learning and growing together and growing our knowledge together, and then putting it into action. And we thought, we definitely need to share this, especially to other women and other mums out there, because it seems really daunting when you're beginning and you don't really know what you're doing. And we thought, if we can sort of give a bit of a roadmap, a bit of an outline of step by step, if you can, to get sort of some sort of management around your personal finances, and then to actually take the first steps to start investing. I think it's so important. So that's sort of why we started Coffee and Tea Finances, and it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a blast, and because a little bit after Lili read that book, I read that book, Your Money or Your Life, and then our conversations, and what really the light bulb moments for me. I had always thought, we buy our home, we were doing house hacking, where we had my mum live with us and pay towards our mortgage, and here in Wellington we've managed to find a house where we can do a similar and rent out part of the house to a lovely tenant. So that sort of was a system we had and thought similar to Lili as well, and my thinking had always been money. I would be able to grow my money through property, and that was a real light bulb moment. I had thought, reduce expenses, cut costs as much as possible, grow our equity, buy further investment property down the track. I had kind of forgotten that there's another way to grow wealth, and there's many, yeah, but there's one that was accessible to me now and for our kids now, which shifted my way of thinking.
It's
and as we got on, we were like, we've got to share this. We've got to talk about this journey.
There's two unique things here about how you both approach this. One is that you're so open about each other's way of going about this, and your finances. I mean, I don't even talk to my wife about my own money, so I'm joking. But the thing is, like, to be that open with someone and just say, okay, this is what I got. This is, what I'm thinking, what to do with this to make it grow. I mean, that's quite unique. I mean, that's a lot of trust more than anything, I would imagine, And the other thing is, like, it seems like you really both really figured out, or at least thought about, definitely, different ways to go about, growing personal wealth. And like, it sounds, that you probably have a track of doing it in a certain way, and sounds sophisticated. But in general, like, let's just say, like, someone who's not so much into that, or can really understand that as much in depth as you do, maybe, which I'm sure if people want to learn, they can through you, which is awesome. But like, in general, is investing in itself, from both of your opinions, is it really a difficult approach, or is it like a set and forget thing, as far as you see it, like invest in ETF or something like that and just pump money into that? But are there really, good general habits to go about it in a way that makes sense for just anyone to do, basically?
Yeah, definitely. Most of us learn how to drive a car and get our license. Mm-hmm. And honestly, having to pass your driver's test is a lot more harder than just learning how to invest. And if you're just going to invest in some easy, well-diversified ways like low-cost index funds, exchange-traded funds, it really is not quite as complicated as you think it is when you first start out. And a lot of us aren't familiar with any sort of investing knowledge. It probably hasn't been passed down. Our parents probably didn't invest. It certainly was the case for us. And so you have no familiarity with it whatsoever. So you're starting out, and it's kind of like you're trying to learn a foreign language. You don't know how in depth you need to go. You don't know you start reading all these new terms, and you're just like
bamboozled with all that
too much. I just don't know what's going on. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. And I think in our parents' generation, there was a real barrier to entering into investments, because you needed upfront thousands of dollars to invest, but these
and you needed
days,
a broker,
and you needed someone to, and so it's just so accessible now, and that's something that right now is really unique, and there's so many entry points, whereas there weren't. And so there was no way that my parents could pass that information and knowledge on. They thought they were doing incredibly well because they were good at saving. And that was their way to financial security. But yeah, so it's been like learning how doing something like $5 a week, investing $5 a week or $10 a week, or even haphazardly $5 can make such a difference in the long run for ourselves and for our kids if we start now, because they've got time on their side. They've got many years ahead of them where they can feel the beauty effects of compound interest. And I think there's one of the things that happened for me was what shifted from focusing on cutting expenses, really living on a constrained budget. We weren't high in cash flow, still have to be very, watchful of what we do and how we spend our money. But there was a shift from focusing on that to thinking, actually, I can think about also growing my wealth. And that did so much for my mindset around money and how I talk about money now to my kids. And that's something, we don't have financial education as part of our school curriculum. So it's literally what we learn in our home life. And so, just to make it more of a conversation and accessible. And some people are going to read books, but some people aren't. Like, it's not their cup of tea. And
I think the hardest part when you're trying to look at sort of just trying to get your whole personal finance, and you're on your own little journey to try and improve your whole situation. The hardest part initially is if you're just living payday to payday, it's going to be really difficult to even find $5 sometimes to start investing. But we speak about investing because if you're only just trying to save beyond, say, an emergency savings account, that savings is just going to lose its value over time because of what inflation is always there year upon year. Particularly at the moment for many families out there, we're getting hit very hard every time we go to buy some groceries or we go and fill up with some gas. It's a little bit painful. And you can really beat inflation by investing for the long term. So it is hard, and it's one of the things that we cover starting from scratch. How are you going to just find a little bit more cash flow in your current budget, and then moving all the way along to actually taking those first steps to start investing, because the first steps of getting started are usually the hardest.
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to interject right there, just to focus on mothers out there, women out there who, let's say, since 2020, maybe they've had to take on a second job because they're like not making ends meet for several reasons, right? And just the economics is getting really tight. How do you both go about that in helping those women out there, especially, like, say, hey, look, I know the stress of what you're feeling right now to make ends meet and provide for your kids is heavy, like, no doubt about that. But like having those balances of like, okay, still consider investing, still consider budgeting, instead of, because when we're stressed, we can be more compulsive, right? We can go about like just trying to make the best thing, make us feel good at the time so we can get over our misery, right? Which I think is very common. We're humans. So how's your approach with that? And the way you communicate and encourage people, especially women out there, like, consider these balances, especially with your way of handling your finances and for your kids.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we sort of like to think we approach it in the way that both Jen and I look at it, whereas we have to really be focused on what's our big picture here, and for both of us, it's growing our wealth, but it's also creating some generational wealth for our children and starting them investing. We're looking at that big picture is really important, because it means that, as you say, in the moment when you're going to make and buy things, or, you need to go to the grocery store, if you don't have some sort of a long range or held
strong why,
strong purpose,
and brings you back,
you're gonna lose track of your goals really quickly. So we have a tracking spreadsheet so that you can start getting a handle on kind of where you are financially and start moving towards where you want to be by just doing some simple things like consciously spending. Especially as mums, we know you go out, you're bringing back some food for the household, and before you know it, instead of sort of sticking to a spending plan at the supermarket, you've gone and tacked on an extra $100. And it's only because you've popped in, 4 more items than you normally would.
Thanks to inflation
at this point in time. But really, when you look over how you spend your money and you fine-tune it, you'll find that there's a few habits there, and there's a few ways that you're spending your money that you actually don't care about or you don't want to do. It's just more that it's happening because you're not that conscious of it. And most people can actually fine-tune and find some good savings there just by spending a little bit more consciously and thinking of your big picture and your big reasons to save.
It's both of us, we have in our Facebook group, we do a book club. We started a book club, and our first book was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, and we've just got so many good gems, and something we will carry on doing, because it was really great to be able to share that with the group. And having cutting back on the things that you actually wouldn't miss, but allowing yourself to also enjoy spending the money that you enjoy, that makes your life a little bit happier, and not having that guilty spending. I think that was something as well that before we started Coffee and Tea Finances, Lily said, "Hey Jen, have you reviewed things lately?" And I plugged away and I was like, I've tracked my money for quite some time, but I was like, okay, it's really good to have someone else cast their eyes over things. And Lily's like, "Oh Jen, maybe have a look at your utilities." And I was like, okay, but I think I'm getting a really good rate. And I wasn't. I was being overcharged. I was on the wrong type of plan. I had been on the wrong type of plan for 5-6 years. And I went and changed provider, and it was just like, whoa, that was instantly $600 per year that I saved.
Yeah, and when you look through negotiating your fixed expenses, you actually can find most times $50 to $100 a week. When you actually fine tune every step and you start with the big ones and then make your way down.
Well, yeah, and that's being maniacal, really, and very conscious of the way you spend, right? And just bringing that awareness into what am I really doing, and especially if you have kids as well. And I'm really curious to segue into that aspect of it. Is how can moms, and if moms are in charge and leading their household, especially with their kids, right? And let's just say there's no husband in the picture here, or a partner, whoever. Let's just say there's mom and just their kids, right? How can they help? What's a good approach to even get the kids turned on? Because kids love to spend money, but they don't like to learn about it too. What is a good way to get kids enthusiastic about how they use their money and the usefulness of money and how to consciously spend it, so they can learn for themselves, but also in a way help the household at the same time? What's a good approach to that?
Well, I think it's really important, as mums, that we lead the conversation with and about money around our children. So we're talking about it all the time, and we're talking openly with them about what are we saving for. Maybe we're going on holiday this year. how much are we putting away? Actually share some of those little details, because they matter, because it helps shape your children's ideals around money and how they're feeling about money, because there's a whole lot of emotion when it comes to how you use your money. It's not just about numbers. So, you know, when you're a child, you sort of shape those early ideas you have are formed around 7. So it's really young. We ran a challenge for the kiddos, and ways in which you can, you know, bring about that conversation, ways in which you can be really practical, where we set up 4 mugs,
cups,
and you can actually, you know, get change, get out some money so the kids can handle them. And it was all about portioning out your money for saving, investing, donating,
and spending. And it really, because kids want to see something tangible. Like investing doesn't quite make sense at this point. Lily's got some older kids, 13 and 11.
Yeah.
And for them, they've each got an investing account with Sharesies, and they understand. Like Lily's oldest kid was the teacher. Is this okay if I share the story? Was sitting in the class, and her children are very bright, and the teacher was like, "Oh, I was talking about investing, but your son wasn't really." Like, I didn't really feel like he was engaged. And
he said to Aston, you know, are you following along with this okay? Thinking he was maybe checking out. He said, oh, yes, I've got my investments. And, have you? In what? He said, you know, top 50 in New Zealand, top 500 in the US. And the teacher, he was like, honestly, I wanted to hand the class over to him and just start learning from him if I could. One, I thought it was really neat that his teacher was actually approaching this topic with the kids in class. Yeah. But 2, you know, that exposure that my children have already had, where they've gone onto the platform themselves, they've actually read through and picked out their own funds that they're investing in, and it's just sort of part of everyday life for them. And it's just such a good starting point for them. So whatever your journey was yourself as a parent or as a mum, you can totally change that. You can change the course of your financial future for your children. And I think as a mum, like if things are are and can be really tight, just setting up the infrastructure of going, well, each of my kids have an account, and if a relative gives them some money towards their birthday or Christmas, there's the option of like 50 or 20% of that will go towards their investment. But you've got that infrastructure, you've got that account set up. And that's an amazing first step in feeling like, I am doing something. I'm laying some great foundations for my kids. My kids are a little bit younger. My oldest is 9, soon to be 9. And she was in tears in the car yesterday, crying that she wasn't allowed to go to the shop with her friends to get an ice cream. And I was explaining to her that the choices we're making now to not go, and like we already did it once this week, to do it again is like we're going away on a holiday, like that, all that little stuff adds up, and she can go and do that with her cousins in a couple of weeks when we're up visiting. So, and she understood it. She was like, oh, okay. Like she didn't like the news, but it was about choice, and it wasn't saying no and being tough. But once she realised actually there's choices and there's the value in not getting it now, but
yes, it will come down the track
for what we are planning for. Yeah.
I mean, your kids are going to grow up extremely wealthy. There's no doubt about that. I mean, and that's the thing is, like learning at that age and just having all those insightful ways in which because they're learning, right? It's about their like if they can be as eager with all these other themes in life to learn and know more about life, and especially in that way, oh my goodness. I mean, they are so primed for success. I mean, in that way, in security, you could say, right? In a financial security sort of aspect, and just general life lessons about, how money can really, really lead to a lot less stress if it's managed properly. I mean, and so invaluable. So that's incredible that they're learning already that through you both in those unique ways. And look, I only have one last question, unfortunately, because we don't have that much time, but we got to find a part 2 and go into much greater depth at some point in the future with a couple of these topics, because they're very, very important. And a lot of people out there, a lot of women in our audience really would love to know in more detail and learn from you both, because you're both very insightful and very, excellent to listen to. So I think it's going to be really important if you agree in the future. So
sounds great.
Lovely.
because it'd be so important, and we have to find the right other themes to really hone down on, and even ask our audience to submit some questions. I think that'd be really good, to really pick your brain, so to speak, in a way, right? My last question is this: what would be your advice? Because I think stress and not having finances properly in order are tandem in a certain way, right? If you're really, really bogged out about one issue, like it can lead to a lot of catastrophic other bad decisions in your life, unfortunately. What would be your advice right now for any woman out there who's just overwhelmed, like totally stressed out, like they just feel overwhelmed with debt and don't know where the money's going to be coming in to pay the next rent, mortgage, or any sort of bills come up, for we're April Fool's Day now. So, maybe after April Fool's Day, be your advice for them, anyone in that situation, that predicament, to like really step back and start really taking that first step to get their life in order.
Yeah, I think you really have to sit down and actually get your head in the game of, okay, because we get these really strong feelings of avoidance when you're feeling really stressed about your money at that time. So I think it's so important that you just sit down and you actually write down, right, how much do I have coming in? How much have I got going out? What sort of debt am I carrying? And you just get that whole quick financial snapshot of where you are, because then you can actually start making a plan forward. And your plan forward really needs to focus on paying down high interest debt if you've got it, so anything above 7%, getting an emergency fund built up as quickly as you possibly can, any way that you possibly can. We run decluttering
challenges,
start a side hustle, just find ways that you can build at least to a minimum of $1,000 as quickly as you can, because when you're stuck in this cycle of not having enough money, you get stuck in debt really easily, and it really compounds against you, and it starts to feel a bit like you're drowning. And your very first step forward is going to get an emergency buffer set up, so that when those things that keep happening over and over again that were unexpected and you need to pay them, you've actually got something where you don't have to resort to any debt. Once you get past that point, just to start thinking and moving forward about ways to increase your income and ways that you can opt in to invest in little simple ways, $5 a week. That would be.
And I think like joining our community on Instagram, Facebook,
finding information.
A lot of it is the belief in ourselves and how we think and feel about money. And Lily and I cheer each other on, and we're there to cheer other people on and motivate and support. This is your past choices don't dictate your future, and they are not who you are. But unfortunately, sometimes we're still paying for decisions we made in the past.
Yeah, but wherever you are, you can turn it around.
You can.
Yeah,
you can. And we've got we regularly post up, tips, information, motivation, and really encourage other mums, other people out there.
That is invaluable. And so for all of our great insight, both of you, by the way, I think that's excellent way to start out and really just hit it head on today, and try your best to, and just put your emotional part around that too, and just go forward and take one step at a time. And we'll do a part 2 for sure. We'll go into depth a lot more in these issues. That it would be an honor for me to speak to you both again. And before we finish, where can our audience on the podcast platform, on the YouTube, on all the viewing platforms, find out more about you, connect with you, and just follow you and get more in depth and maybe even work with you individually.
Yeah. So you can find us really easily on Instagram. Our handle is at Coffee and Tea Finances. We're also on Facebook, and we have a Facebook group. So if you actually want to join the discussion and get lots of insight, lots of tips, and ask questions, it's free for everyone to join. So, come and have a look. You can click the link in our bio on Instagram, and that'll give you a whole lot of information about how you can join us, or some
freebies. We've got a free Master Your Mindset, money mindset, and free tracking, free printables. And we will, because Lily and I started in August last year, and we're working around our kids as well. So we're doing this with pockets of time soon we will be starting a YouTube channel and podcast, a blog, and we've got some more workshops in the pipeline as well.
Yeah, so we have a step-by-step financial handbook for those people who really are living payday to payday, and you want basically a literal guide. You can have a checklist of ways that you can find immediate cash flow and then start moving your money in the right direction. And we're also running an investing workshop today as well. And we run those not too often, but they're there. So again, just click the link in our bio on Insta and you can find all that stuff.
Excellent. Such valuable information. So helpful. I encourage all of our audience to go and check it all out. And it's greatly, it's amazing all you're doing and you're planning. It's super women. This is incredible. It's just so many incredible things you do in your life. But no, I really commend you both, and I'm sure it's going to make such a positive impact and help so many people and so many moms and women out there especially. So I encourage everyone to check out. We're going to include all the information that Jen Lili mentioned in the pinned comments, in the description and show notes, and all the platforms, so you can connect with both of them and follow them more deeply in everything that they're doing to really help you out on your own financial journey. So generally, we thank you so very much. We look forward to part 2 sometime future to go with depth on some of these topics in a lot more detail. And I thank you so much for being on DevKEAL this episode.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And we thank you all for listening, watching, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.